I am excited to continue this conversation with Ashleigh, with Michael, on how we build a governing apparatus and operation for all. And in this case, how that is often rooted in local and community and state level efforts, especially when our federal government has some different ideas. Sometimes even our local governments have different ideas in terms of how we get to the all. And so if that is the starting place, right, the neighborhood's the smallest unit of democracy, I've heard people like Eric Ward say that, then what do you do when even at the local level, it feels very hard to start?
I think we hear this a lot. It's like, okay, I love that for y'all. I love that for the nation. And like, I don't know if I'm up for that, or do I really have that much power? And so I'm gonna, there are other amazing places besides New Orleans.
No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it, even though we're here right now.
You know, and so I wanna turn our attention to down home North Carolina. They are a great example of how you just start and how that work can evolve. And so as I understand it, this was a group of folks who really started rallying around a neighborhood park, right? Clean up the park. That was the goal.
That's hands-on.
Hands-on.
That is very tangible.
And here's what I love about that. You know if the park is clean.
You can measure it. You can measure it.
Yes. There's an immediate
What does the
outcome.
park smell like now?
Yes, right. And
how much litter?
They started with a neighborhood park cleanup.
Okay.
But over time, that evolved into, well, you know what? Wait a minute. It looks like we've built a coalition of residents, of partners who now can work on bigger things. Yeah. And so we moved from a neighborhood park to, well, what about school board seats, right? Like, there's a governing institution that we think could better serve us. And then from school board seats, now folks have set a goal like, okay, well, wait a minute. What if we started to shift the state legislature, right, by 2030? Think about that. From a neighborhood park, can we just, that looks like phone calls and making sure people show up on a Saturday morning at the same time, to now we see that we can be in relationship with each other, that those relationships, those partnerships can hold, right, over time. And we can win some things like seats, but we could also think about what are the policies at the state level? Who do we want our state to be? How do we want our state to deliver for us? And we can organize around that. And I feel like that brings us back to an earlier conversation we had about governing, that there's a way for us. Michael, you keep inviting us to just not be satisfied with a policy win. We should be excited about it. We should be proud of it. I'm proud of the work that I did here in New Orleans. And what are the lessons that accrues for us to get into this work of governing? Because you can go from a neighborhood park to shifting the state legislature to getting your state to define what general welfare looks like for the people of North Carolina. All of that becomes possible, but it started with something that may have felt small to some, but attainable to others.
So I want to get into, what does it take to make that leap? Because what you described to me, it's some of what we came across in making the How to Citizen podcast series. We would find these people taking on a very specific local thing. I need more broadband. My park is dirty. And then they find relationship and they find power. And they're like, what are we going to do with this power? It kind of snowballs. And so it may become something to the state legislature. But it doesn't always happen that way. So what is required to get there and beyond? There's an example I came across recently from elsewhere, the land of Scotland. But they did something, they've implemented, it's the first in the world. It's a community wealth building requirement for government spending at the national level. So this is at their national level legislature. They are required to support keeping the money circulating amongst the people, supporting small and medium-sized businesses, even to the point of land and business use has to support communities. So, and you got to work with universities and artists. They tried to make it enforceable, measurable, and durable because it's a law now. This is not an initiative, it's not a program, but it started local. It started with a couple of provinces, or however they subdivide. I don't know if province is the technical term. Scotland, don't at me. But it's, and there are other examples I'm sure out there, but I was like, that is trying to meet the moment of economic pain that more people are feeling. Yeah. So we're going to do something like that? We're going to do something bigger than that. What are we going to do?
Well, we like that.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, we like that.
We like that, right?
Yes.
And then it's a matter of, I love that example because then it causes you to ask the question, what would be the levers here that are required? Mm-hmm. Who does it take, right? Yeah. And, do I have all the right people who are required to make that demand, right? So I love that.
Yeah. Mm. When we're trying to go from local to national in a governing for all agenda, there is an inherent tension to apply something that works in a region and have it work everywhere for everybody. Mm-hmm. Because this is a massive nation with different languages and different cultures and different foods and customs and religious practices and geographies, right? We're shaped by the land, and the land is vast and different. So, how do we reconcile the need for a unified set of values and a governing for all principle that applies nationally and federally, while also allowing for and respecting these more individual distinctions?
What I learned from my time in city government, there's something special about working in city government because you still have to go to the grocery store. You still have to go to church. You still have to go to the basketball game. And you are going to run in to your constituency, right, to your neighbors, and they are going to ask you, like, look, the street light is out. Yeah. Or that pothole that I told y'all about a year ago is still there. There's an accountability. And I think I feel like that's what you're asking us to apply to the broader frame, right? And so when I stepped out of city government, even when I stepped into our local economic development organization, I still brought that accountability with me, right? I have to be able to say, this is what we delivered in these last 12 months, right? And here's where we missed the mark. And I brought that with me to PolicyLink, right? And met you there, who was also holding that same accountability. Now, leaders get to make choices, right? To your point about whether or not they're comfortable with that level of accountability, but we've made that choice. And so what we're trying to do in our work is show, even in the reimagining of the governing institutions, add that accountability lever into the mix, right? That's what I hear you pushing us to do.
And to do it in a way that is worthy of the moment and is worthy of I'll give you a good example. Yeah. The city of Oakland, California, where I live, it's only about 400,000 folks, and yet it can't really operate as a city well. Can't fix potholes. It can't even pick up the trash or remove graffiti. You come up out of the subway station on 12th Street and it looks like a zombie set for a movie. And you say, well, how could that be? And yet I'm watching an administration show me what, when you take up your leadership role, you could do. You say, well, wow, you can't just pick up the trash. I could just choose to hire a whole bunch of teens who didn't have no money this summer, and we could have done that. Or I could figure out how we use streets and sanitation in a different way, just go on and take care of it. It don't need to take 5 damn years and all these meetings that it's taking. What I'm really signaling is, and this is where I have a strong contempt, because if there's anything, while I have a contempt for what this administration is doing, it is giving us a master class in leadership. It takes us 100 years to land on something, even when it's legal. And yet I'm watching them do it overnight in less than a year. And if we don't get this lesson, we miss you can't get to governing for all with the pace and the courage that we have. It's so little. Think about what has been done legally just this year that has blown institutions up. And when we get a chance again, the question for me is, will we fight that hard for our people?
Yes. I think it starts, though, with an invitation. And
why an invitation?
When I think about our work, well, an episode ago, we talked about perhaps we have to become something different. Right?
Yes.
And I do believe that I needed to be, when you go to church, okay, I grew up in Black Baptist church. At the end of every service,
4 hours
what is
later.
there? An invitation.
Doors of the church open.
And the invitation is really about, do you want to be changed? Do you want to be different? And I believe that's what we're, like the whole revolution of the soul, the last summit was just an invitation. We didn't even shift to the accountability part. It really was, this is going to require something different of each of us, individually and as a collective. I think that's an invitation.
Yes.
I think what I learned in City Hall, well, that's a different kind of invitation. When the city council invites you to come present to them, it's an invitation, but it's about accountability. And I'm suggesting that in the same way that we invited folks to do the soul work, just to even be in a place that they could consider the allness of governing for all, the next invitation is, are we willing to hold ourselves accountable?
Yes, and go ahead, brother.
And how are we defining the goal?
That's it.
We've had this discussion in part around general welfare as something that is up for grabs, right? And part of the invitation is into answering a bigger question together. I started this question right now around balance between a sort of national frame on that goal and then the local flavors of it. Because you can get stuck in the academics and the semantics and the words, like I'm literally doing right now, of, well, where's the balance and who's this? And I could write a bunch of papers on it. And meanwhile, we haven't moved toward any of it. So I hear the bias toward action, I hear the invitation, and what I suspect, and we will only know by doing, is, first of all, big old caveat, like this administration has shown us a lot of things, including how to do some things that are probably not legal.
Exactly.
And we're not trying to model that, right? We're not.
right.
But the audacity is worth considering when paired with the humility that's already in the value set. And part of the humility is saying, look, okay, we want to run on clean energy. That's going to look different in Texas than in Maine. We're not prescribing windmills for everybody. We're prescribing a commitment to the goal of renewable energy. And you use your local ecosystem to figure it out. But we're going to hold ourselves accountable to the same standard.
But your earlier example about, like, okay, so we can't seem to get a Voting Rights Act passed at the federal level. So you see states taking that on. They're passing their own voting rights acts because they have decided it's important for our citizenry to be able to vote. Each one of those bills, the acts that actually, the bills that get successfully passed into acts, they look different in each state. And that's actually okay, right? Because they're taking into account the culture of that place, the history of that place, all of those things. But it is sending a signal nationally, right? Those end up becoming their own invitations of a sort, right? Like, we did it for our state, now federal government, are you willing? We invite you to consider that we believe everybody should have the right to vote. And so I think it's important, and maybe because I live in such a special place called New Orleans, Louisiana.
Where do you live again?
I live in New Orleans. And we're special, right? But seriously, when you think about, this is Mardi Gras, our carnival season right now. There are a couple other places who have that. They don't have it the same, right? But it's special. We have a different way of doing things. We even have a different way. What was required to pass that local hire policy and then to defeat preemption at the state legislature, that process looked different, I bet, in the state of Louisiana than it would in Rhode Island, right? And so I actually think that there is a middle that we can really call the governing question and invite folks to operate at a different altitude. And how that manifests in their local places may look different, but it does still accrue to this national change that we want to see.
I agree with both of you here. And I think this is where PolicyLink works is important around what is the governing standard. Because if you create the governing standard, then citizens can take it up and have a new way of wanting to hold folks accountable. The fantasy that I have for this work is that when this is all done, You won't be able to run for an election without the citizens holding you to the standard in your platform. You see, that's where we got to go. And then, because what you're really hearing from me is the fear of slipping back. And I'm trying to say, go into this durable and enforceable. And most importantly here, I want people to understand that as we come up with these new ideas, we must have the legal and regulatory apparatus to compel it to be so. No more a wishing and a hoping. And that is work that we often avoid because it ain't as sexy and as immediate as all the other things that we've talked about.
And if you get, not if, when we get to the stage, when we are able to imagine another constitutional amendment, I just want you to know that when New Orleans and Louisiana votes on it, it might, commercials might have a bounce beat. And you might have people twerking
I will
in
vote
a ballot
however
box.
Big Frida tells me
Right?
to vote.
Look, Fifth Ward Weeby and that
We gonna
twerking
bounce to the polls.
commercial got us the unanimous jury, right? And that looks different. I would be so sad if I saw the people of Maine, right, with a bounce commercial. That would not be appropriate, right? And so that's the middle.
Right. If we have learned nothing else today, it is that New Orleans is special. And everybody's different, and that's okay, but we align on the standard. I really like that. I think it works in technology, it works in business, it works even in educational standards. We already have examples of how we agree to a common national, maybe even global standard. We define it together, we hold ourselves accountable in some transparent way, and we allow for that individual, that regional, that local flavor to execute it. But we've got to be on the same page that we are about challenging the basic assumptions and the basic commitments we're making to each other. We are in our nation's 250th birthday. What I consider one of the most awkward birthday parties in American history for all the conflicting moments that we could be celebrating, commemorating, remembering, and acknowledging. And it's a beautiful opportunity. And I'm curious what you're seeing at the state and local level that feels like it could be a template or an indicator of what we would be celebrating 250 years from now. What's putting us on that right path?
There are lots of examples of activities happening now that make a difference. They are important and they are a significant contribution to where we're headed. And I feel like we are in that kind of moment that requires wait a minute. This is another founding moment, right? And so when I think about the organizers in New Orleans and in Louisiana who helped to push back those 4 state constitutional amendments, who helped to pass the Housing Trust Fund in 2024, that those folks now say, wait a minute, we will continue to work on the local policies. And because we are founders, we're also going to move together and leverage this 250th birthday to say who we believe the United States can become, right? That is super exciting to me. And then we're also offering the container for folks from Louisiana and Minnesota and California and North Carolina to come to our summit this year, in August 2026. And we expect that to be a place where we design this next generation of governing institutions together. And it allows you to bring your passion for housing, and you can work on that and work on a new blueprint for governing. And you can bring your passion for infrastructure, and you can work on that and think about how do we level up our legal and regulatory framework for infrastructure and work on a new governing blueprint for the United States. And so I'm excited about being able to leverage all of the wins across each of the policy areas, but that we really follow the example from our local ancestors in 1864 to decide that this is also a founding moment. And so we want to reach for the highest aspiration of that work.
How about you, Michael?
For too long, I think we've all saw ourselves as dispassionate participants in a system that is thrust upon us. And I think you're seeing people now say, wait a minute, I can do more than just critique this democracy and economy. I can change it. And man, especially when you know what we do when we start getting creative. There's something really magical that can happen. And so I'm excited to see people now starting to say, this is my country, and I'm gonna do something with it, right? And so that's exciting. Yeah. There's a big foundation of folks now, a multiracial foundation of folks who want something different. Yeah. And I think that's the last thing that I probably am most excited about. I don't know if there's ever been a more diverse, multiracial movement of folks who are asking for the all. We are primed for something great if we just don't walk away from it.
I appreciate you, Michael, naming both of the parts that you did, because I want to piggyback a little bit. The way I would describe the twin cities of it all, at the time of our conversation, is it's not even protest. Yeah. So much of it is just care. Yeah. It's organized care. And that's a different motivation. Yeah. You know, you might see it as a luxury to take off time from work to go make a statement, but it's a compulsion to go care for your neighbor. That's right. And so people are seeing themselves, and I feel like this government picked the wrong city. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of wrong cities, but that one in particular is multiracial, and they love their neighbors, and it's a very Midwestern value. You know, it's like it's deep in the bones, and it comes with the immigrants who are newer as well. There's a common love of family and community that's on display there, and that love is very, very strong. A lot of these founder values that y'all talk about, you see them playing out, and it's real. I'm also reverse inspired, I would say, by those who are opposed to the For All agenda. Yeah. They have shown us the flimsiness of many of our norms and our institutions and our rules. They have shown us the changeability of them on a dime. Just because we've always said we've always done things this way, one, we could stop doing them. Two, we could even stop saying we do them. And people still get up in the morning, and they still go to work, and the sun still rises. And so there's like, no one should have a monopoly on imagination or on a desire for major change. And so for those who are aligned with the For All, let's get in that game. You know, it's a really big, beautiful invitation and opportunity. And I just want to thank you both for having me be a part of this with you one more time. Happy birthday, America. We're 250 years old, and it's fitting to be a pretty awkward party. The good news is we're being invited to ask ourselves deeper questions about who we want to be and how we want to live together. What values do we want to live under, and what do we want to be for the next 250 years? How do we want to create a nation that governs for all? And that question is not answered in Washington, D.C. Not so much. It's answered in places that have beignets, places like New Orleans, Louisiana. The experiments in democracy that are happening all over the country constantly, and even more right now, they all ladder up to a bigger vision for how we create a democracy that finally works for everybody. And it's something that I get to explore in the series In the Making, a series from PolicyLink where we're asking not just how we fix what's broken, but how we build what comes next. And also what comes next, which is what it sounds like when I say those words in the proper way. Now for me, what's next is this beignet, but I can only do it once because all this powdered sugar gets everywhere. Who came up with this dessert anyway? It wasn't made for like film-friendly environments, I'll tell you that much. Also, I probably shouldn't have worn such dark colors.